So I'm currently in my garage with this bad boy. I picked this up off of Facebook Marketplace and it is very yellow. I currently have these floating shelves in my office that are Nathan James, like open faux wood and iron floating shelves. I'm sure you've seen them all over social media and in home decor people's spaces, but I really love this. It's solid pine and it is a hutch, so this actually comes off, which is going to come in handy because my plan is to sand it and stain it. Not sure yet. I'm either gonna go with a whitewash for my office makeover, but yeah, jury's still out, but I'm gonna start with sanding this down.
So there was some trim on this hutch that was very ornate and dating the piece. So I just took a mallet and a little tiny crowbar and just tapped it off. It was very easy. It was just in there with a few brad nails, but it immediately modernized the piece. So you're going to see that I went through several different methods to try and get this to the color that I wanted. I thought I was going to sand this thing down, but when I got to these doors and there are all these grooves, because this is tongue and groove paneling that's been turned into basically like a backsplash and everything, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get in those cracks. So then I was like, I know, I have citrus stripper in my garage. I'll just try citrus stripper. And if you've ever worked with citrus stripper, you know it's very smelly and it's very messy. And you can't just rinse it off because it's not water soluble. You have to scrape it off and you just make a mess. And it's a huge, huge pain. But I did start with citrus stripper. I put it all over the piece because I already had it, and I was just like, I don't want to go to the hardware store. And I let it sit on there for probably about an hour, and you will see how this turns out after I do one coat of citrus stripper to get this first sort of coat of orange off of the pine hutch. So after I let it sit for a while, I went in with a putty knife and just started scraping all of the gunk off, and I did get a good amount of varnish off, but this process is just very, very tedious, and because there are shelves and there are just all these nooks and crannies, it's very labor intensive. So you will see there is one more step to this process that actually works, which is the step I recommend you start with. So fun fact, I actually did this during the hurricane that happened in Los Angeles recently, but this is what I did after I citrus stripped the doors. There was still orange on them, and I took some easy off oven spray, which I'm sure you all have seen on social media, people stripping furniture with this stuff, and I tested it on the doors because I was like, it's a small surface area and I just want to see if it works. And basically you just spray it on. I use the heavy duty oven cleaner. You definitely want to wear a mask and you definitely want to wear gloves. It's very, very fumey, and I think the fumes are just kind of toxic smelling. So you definitely want to do this in a well-ventilated space, but you just spray it on liberally. You wait for it to soak in for 20 minutes. You don't need to do more than 20 minutes. And then you come in and you scrub everything off. And you'll see here that there was more to get off, even though I had already citrus stripped. And I think I had sanded too at this point, maybe. Or maybe I just citrus stripped and wiped it off. But scrubbing, I got so much yellow gunk off of these cabinets, and I was like, I should have just started with this because it's very simple. You spray it on, wait 20 minutes, scrub the coatings off, and then you just rinse it off. And as you can see here, I'm just taking the hose. It's already raining outside, but I am rinsing it off, and I could see, as you can see, it's sort of pulling up on the plastic below. There was more to get off, and it came off very easily. Sometimes, depending on the stain color, because I did also end up doing this on a darker piece of furniture, which you will see later in my fall decorate with me, but this doesn't really show the work that you did and the change until after it dries. So just a little tip for you if you are going to use the easy off oven cleaning method to strip your wood furniture. And these are what the doors look like without sanding them. The color is fantastic. Now these this is the pine hutch, which has only been citrus stripped, and you can see it's still orange. So I just went ahead and did the easy off method on these as well, because the citrus strip was driving me crazy and all that scraping was driving me crazy. So again, I recommend starting with the citrus strip, even if you have to do 2 passes, 2 coats. It's worth it. It's much easier and less labor intensive. So I'm just doing the same process, spraying it on thick on all of the surfaces and waiting 20 minutes and then scrubbing it off. And this is how the dresses were looking after I sprayed them. They are just kind of like, they look dark, but again, you gotta wait to scrub and then spray and dry. So I'm just scrubbing all of that excess coating off, and you can see it's getting a lot off, so it's definitely working. And another tip, if you're going to try this method, keep a bucket of water with you and just dip the brush in. Occasionally, it helps to keep the easy off from drying out, and it makes it easier to scrub if it's wet. This was actually really fun to do in the rain and really relaxing, and just like a fun activity to do during the storm. The storm wasn't bad where I was in Los Angeles, so this was just a fun, relaxing thing to do, and to not be hot in this heat that's been happening in LA during the summer. So this is just a better close-up of the doors after they have dried from the easy off, and as you can see, they are completely transformed. It is almost the exact color that I wanted them to be. So I'm just going over them with a 120 grit sandpaper and then using a wood conditioner to prep them for staining. This is a pre-stain by Mini Wax, and it just helps to not have blotching when you stain, and things go on more smooth.
The wood is looking pretty good on the doors. I did put the stain on it, the pre-stain on it, and I've let it dry for about like 10 minutes. So I am just going to try out this gel stain that I've used many times before on different projects. I think I have enough to do the cabinets. Like a little bit goes a very long way. I may have to go pick up like a finishing wax or something, just something that protects it, because I don't really want to do a polyacrylic.
So this is the whitewash gel stain, and I've used it many times before recently in my laundry nook makeover. It just takes the yellow out of the wood and makes it look more like white oak. So it looks a little splotchy here, but once it dries, it's really just going to dry nice and even, like I showed you in that previous clip on that backsplash, and just gives it that high-end, white oak look that everybody is after these days. So I am taking off the hardware, which I probably should have done sooner, but I knew that because look at all the damage that I did to it with all those chemicals. I knew I was going to want to change them to a brass color, because my knobs are solid unlacquered brass, and these were kind of like a cheap painted metal. So I'm just taking some rub and buff. I'm using antique gold, the color antique gold, and it is giving it that nice brassy, almost like a copper undertone instead of that cheap yellow gold color. It goes on super easily. You just get like a microfiber cloth, rub it on, and it dries within minutes. And as you can see, they look completely different, and you can especially see the difference next to the hardware. Just testing it out here, and it's a really nice match. So this is what the pine hutch is looking like after the oven cleaner has dried, and I'm just loving it. So there's still a tiny bit of yellow. I'm going in with this white gel stain to whitewash it and take it out, but once it dries, it is absolutely beautiful. Before moving the piece in, I took this opportunity to do a nice little vacuuming, get the dust bunnies out. This is the piece that used to be in my office. I moved it. It was just too dark and taking up too much space, so I stripped it and moved it to a different part of my house, which you will see in another video. So I'm just moving the hutch in. It's all dry and it looks really beautiful. So stay tuned for next week when I do a full office refresh and shelf styling and decorate this baby along with the rest of my office for fall. So I did do one more DIY as a part of my fall office refresh, and I wasn't using this paper roll at all to take notes or anything. It was just literally hanging on my wall. So I decided to do a DIY pin board instead. This is a project that I actually saw Lone Fox do, and essentially what you do is you just take a canvas that you're no longer using, and this is actually just a canvas that I thrifted for a painting that I just don't really care for anymore. I took the staples out of the frame and then I filled it with this foam filler. It's actually foam insulation all along the back. And essentially what this is going to do once it hardens is create a surface on the front of the canvas for you to be able to put push pins into. So you can put pictures or notes or whatever you want to put on your pin board. And I'm using this linen throw blanket that I got off of Amazon to cover the front of the canvas. I am saving all of that extra linen that I don't use, but I'm just cutting it down to size. And then I am spraying the fabric with this 3M adhesive fabric spray that works really fast and makes the fabric super tacky. And then I am just placing the frame on there and smoothing everything over. And then once the fabric is nice and flat on the front, I just go in with my staple gun, which is a manual staple gun that I got off of Amazon, which I'll leave linked down below. But it's pretty simple. I'm just putting some staples into the back of this wood frame so that the linen fabric is nice and taut over the front. When you get to corners, you just fold them like you're wrapping a present and you just staple them. It's pretty simple. And then once everything was all stapled down, I just am cutting off the excess fabric off of the back of the canvas. And the final step in this process was to put the canvas back into the frame, which is actually a really beautiful gold frame. To attach things to the pin board, I'm going to be using these brass tacks from Amazon, and I think they go really nice with the linen. So this is the wall that I ended up putting this piece on in my office. Please ignore the white spots on the wall. I had to patch it up and didn't have time to do the lime wash again. But I just love the look of the linen and the aged frame on the wall. And I am just hanging up some interior inspo, some fashion inspo on the board, just to give you an idea of what it could look like if you do this yourself, and also just for me, and then a little to-do list. So that's how I'll be using this board, to put up images that inspire me and little notes for myself.